Thank you, CJ. Well, if you get the blues in the winter, sometimes the cold and dreary days can really get people down. And if it persists and interferes with your ability to just function every day, you might have a form of depression known as seasonal affective disorder. So joining us now to talk about some advice on how to deal with this is counselor Kesha Simmons of Youtoo Inc. So thank you again for being with us today. We were just talking about this in the break too, how where you live can really affect or change your seasonal affective disorder. But first, I just want to talk about what it is and what the symptoms are.
Right. Well, you did a great job describing it. Seasonal affective disorder is a mood disorder that is affected by the change of the seasons. So it typically occurs during fall and winter months. Symptoms include those signs of depression, which is persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, worthlessness. Some other symptoms associated with seasonal affective disorder or isolation, feeling not wanting to be around and engage, particularly during the time where there's so much going on. And so those are the symptoms that you need to look for.
And you said this most often happens in the fall and winter.
Yes.
But it's not just related to those times.
Yes, it is.
What can people notice how do they know if during spring and summer they may be feeling off?
Well, if you're feeling off during spring and summer, if you're feeling those symptoms during spring and summer or any time of the year, you want to talk to a therapist. The key is looking for persistency. But when we talk about seasonal affective disorder, we are talking specifically about fall and winter months.
Okay.
During those times, the change of sunlight, and the cooler temperatures, particularly the change of sunlight, is what creates the persistent feelings of sadness for those who suffer from this type of mood disorder. So it's important to know that it really is restricted to the fall and winter months. And so where it gets tricky, though, it's also taking us into the holiday season. So some of those feelings of sadness could be caused by losing loved ones during this time of the year. So while holiday season is a joyous time, for some, they're really mourning the loss of loved ones. So when you're feeling the sadness that can be explained, that's not necessarily seasonal affective disorder, because that sadness can be explained, so to speak.
Yeah.
But seasonal affective disorder is typically triggered by the loss of sunlight, right? And you want to look at it during those fall and winter months. Otherwise, you're fine.
Yeah.
But just when daylight saving time is usually, clients start to feel down. When
they pick back up again.
Yeah, we lose that sunlight, then daylight savings times, when the daylight saving time ends and then our sunlight days are shorter, that's when the sadness starts to kick in. So that's the seasonal affective disorder.
So we already talked about when to reach out to a professional when you notice that persistency. But in addition to reaching out to a professional, what else can people do to try and combat this affective disorder? Right,
that's a good question. So one of the things you want to do is set a routine for yourself. Set a routine because you can then rely on that routine to keep you consistent and to help pull you out of a slump. The second thing you can do is get a light lamp. There's a natural light lamp. You can actually go on Amazon and get it, $25, but it simulates natural light. And so you can get a natural light lamp that can help combat, some of those symptoms of sadness. Another thing, you want to look at your diet and exercise. Of course, we know that applies to most cases when we're feeling dysregulated. But for seasonal affective disorder, definitely look at the light therapy. And if it is persistent, see a therapist.
Yeah, great tips all around. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of this tips and advice.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.